You are listening to Mollie on a Trip, music around Paris on Paris Underground Radio.
Hello, you have reached Mollie at Mollie on a Trip, music around Paris podcast on the Paris Underground Radio Network. I'm a former music executive from the United States who decided to leave my life in LA behind and move to Paris in 2022. Here on the podcast, I'll be speaking to musicians, songwriters, producers, and music executives from both Paris and abroad about what they love about this city. We hear where they like to hang out, where they like to play or see music, and my own personal favorite, what their favorite places to eat and drink are. So I got a chance to talk to Charlotte Cardin, and then, like I used to say it, Charlotte Cardin. She is a massive artist from Montreal. She's wonderful, kind. I used to work with her at Atlantic Records, where she is signed out of the States. She's fantastic, really just vibey, incredible, interesting, sexy music. She's inspiring. Her visuals are really interesting. Go watch her videos. And she has moved to Paris. So I've got a chance to talk with her. We talked about music, but we ended up talking a lot about museums. I didn't know that she was such an art head, so we ended up having a really nice chat about that. So please enjoy Charlotte Cardin. Charlotte Cardin. Hello, Charlotte.
Hey, Mollie. How's it going?
I realized I knew this, but since I've moved to France, I realized I've been saying your last name wrong since I've known you. But I've been schooled. I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like, no, you know what? I've actually been switching up the way that I've been saying my own last name, depending on where I am. So it's totally normal that you would be confused in the pronunciation. I've been saying Cardin to French people, Cardin. But yeah, I mean, my parents named me Charlotte Cardin because we're French speaking. But I mean, I say Charlotte Cardin whenever I'm in the States so that people can actually know how it's, spelled or at least remember it. Or to any English speaking person, I'll say Cardin.
I think that's the thing. It's the spelling versus the pronunciation, because I live really close to the Rodin Museum, which is, I guess, spelled Rodin, which I had never thought of because I think I love him, by the way. I think he's an amazing sculptor and I really like that museum. I assume you've been before.
Yeah, it's a wonderful museum. It's insane. And it's so wonderful to see even all the first drafts of all of his sculptures and the stuff that he worked on in his atelier. It's a beautiful museum. It's one of my favorite ones here.
I was going to ask, actually, what museums do you like to go to here? Or do you do galleries too? Because I feel like it's been almost overwhelming coming here because there's everything from the Louvre, which, by the way, in over a year I still have not been to so it's almost too much. I'm I can't with you.
No, I know. I tried the Louvre a couple times. It's always so busy though. So if you do want to go, I suggest, you should probably go when it's not a holiday, not on a weekend, just you should go on a Tuesday morning or something, just when you can at least see a few things without having too many people there. But I really love the Louis Vuitton Foundation Museum. It's really, really beautiful. And I've been there a couple times. I love the Musée d'Orsay. That's the one I went to the most. I'm a museum girl, so I love going to museums. I actually haven't been to many galleries. So if you have any tips of smaller galleries that I shouldn't miss out on, I would love to hear about them. But yeah, I went to the Musée d'Orsay a few times. Went to, what's that museum called with the Nymphéa by Monet, and it's just a rounded thing with all the, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, is it L'Orangerie?
Yeah, exactly. That one is.
Did you go to the Basquiat X Warhol at Louis Vuitton right now? It just opened.
No, I haven't seen that. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to go. I didn't even know that was.
It's 10.
Happening. Wow.
Yeah, it's 10 rooms of collaborative paintings between the two of them. So Warhol would start something and then Basquiat would go in and sort of add his own anti-commercial flavor to it. And then there's one room that is completely dedicated to a photo shoot of the two of them where they're wearing boxing gloves. It's And I love photography too. So it's like this combination of two things. Like I love Basquiat and I love photography. So I just think it's so cool. Definitely recommend.
Oh, wow. I'll definitely go see it. Wow. Cool.
I don't know. Do you know about this? I haven't obviously used it yet, but just back to the Louvre thing. There's a way in from underground from the mall downstairs. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't know. I know that it's absolutely like it's the biggest. It's so huge. Like it's so big. Like I feel like you would have to go like 20 times to even like see a little bit of everything. But no, I did not know that. An underground secret passage, or no, it's just like open to
Well,
everyone.
it's like a hack someone told me about. Like
Mm.
because underneath the thingy, there's like a sort of like a high-end mall underneath, which also I've gotten sincerely lost down there because the metro comes out and I was like trying to find my exit and I'm not like in city, you know? And I was like,
Yeah.
they're trying to get me to buy something because I like cannot find my way out of this stupid mall. And then I finally as I found my exit, I also saw this like hidden entrance that I'd been told about. And I was like, aha, this is what I'm going to do whenever I end up going is I'm going to come down and enter through the bottom, which is interesting. And
Oh
then
my gosh, that's a really good tip. Thank you.
it is a good tip. I guess I'm sort of giving it away now, but oh well.
Yeah.
Our friend's mom lived here and she did the membership because I think it's something like if you didn't sleep and you spent like X amount of minutes on every painting, it would still take you more than 4 months to see everything at that museum.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine, honestly. And everyone goes just to see the Mona Lisa, but honestly, there are so many, like the most interesting things ever. Like even the Egyptian section with all of the mummies and it's just like
Ooh, I love mummies. I'm going to go just for that.
so interesting and crazy. Yeah.
I don't know if you get this, but after I go to a big exhibit, I get really drained.
Yeah, it's so much to take in. And like I love reading all the descriptions and like the creative process. I'm like one of those people who will actually like borrow the headphones with all the little descriptions. Like I love that. I feel like that's the way you should museum. and
Yep.
um and I feel like if you just walk through like all the galleries, it's just hard sometimes to actually like get a feel of like how the artist actually worked. But it's really draining. Like I feel like after like an hour and a half, it's like I need like a snack and like a nap. I'm just like a toddler. I just become a toddler after an hour and a half of being in a museum.
I was a little anti the tour earphone things for a long time because whenever I had done it, it was like you had to do it in a certain order and whatever. But I love the d'Orsay one because you can just walk up to any piece of art and if it has a number on it, you can listen. And if it's interesting, you can listen to the whole thing. And if you want to, you can just bop around. I will never not get the audio headset again after that. I learned so much. Fantastic.
I know, same. It's so much fun. Like I used to just try to like tag along when I would see like a group with a guide, but that's like always it takes a lot of time and then you really have to go through all the spots they want you to look at, but you just feel like independent. I love the little headphone thing.
We totally took a left and ended up talking about museums for 10 minutes.
I love it.
This is this podcast is about music and Paris, which can be music in Paris, but it's kind of music and Paris. So I wanted to kind of hear from you. When did Paris and France, was it always a part of your psyche and your family? And then also like music and France. So like those two questions.
Well, okay, so both answers are yes. Like they've always been both for music and like, my upbringing has always been very linked to France in a lot of ways. So as you mentioned, I'm French Canadian. I grew up in Montreal and both my parents work in the wine business. So like growing up, most of our holidays would be in France, in the south of France. My parents would go visit some wine producers that they worked with. So we had lots of like vacations either in Napa Valley or in France. Those were kind of like the destinations we would go to on vacation. My mom is an amazing cook. She's been super inspired by French cuisine. And my dad actually grew up in Paris. So he's also Quebecois. He's French Canadian, but his dad was studying in France when he was a kid. So from like age like 1 to 6 or 7, my dad was in Paris. And so my grandma and my grandpa have a lot of, French cooking has always been a huge thing in the family, and French music, and just like the French culture has always been very close to things that we would relate to. And my grandparents always came to France on vacation as well. So like we would go visit them when we were kids. And so France has always been, a big part of my life. And when I started making music, I mean, French singer-songwriters also have an important place in Quebec because we share the same language. And so the French, classic, the big French singer-songwriters like Aznavour or like Jacques Brel or all these incredible French singers have always really crossed over to Quebec because of the language thing. And so I grew up listening to a lot of French music and being inspired by a lot of French artists. And here I am now. I've been dating a French man for 7 years. So that's also a part of the equation. But yeah, it's just always been like a huge part of my life. And it just felt kind of like a no-brainer for me to have at least like a place to stay here in Paris. For a long time, I would share my time between Montreal and Paris. My boyfriend was here. I was in Montreal. But it was just the most natural thing for me to move here because of all those reasons. I had lived here in the past. Like when I was a teenager, I did a little bit of modeling. I lived here for 3 months. Like I knew my way a little bit around the city. So I've just always had like a very close relationship with Paris. This is a long ass answer, but
Yeah, no, that's good. So where do you two live in Paris?
So we have an apartment in Montmartre. So we're on the hill. And yeah, I love it here. My boyfriend used to have an apartment in the 16th arrondissement. I felt like it wasn't as fun of a place to live in. It's just kind of like very quiet and family oriented neighborhood. But here it's just, I really love the 18th. It's really nice. And a lot of our friends live nearby in the 9th or elsewhere in the 18th. So we love it here.
Where do you have like spots in the area that you like to go out? Like, are there cool bars and restaurants and things that you like are like sort of home? This is something I found about Paris is that it seems that like it's very important to like get to know your neighborhood, and it's not just your bar and restaurant. It's like your butcher, the boulangerie. Like,
yeah,
I know my fruit guy Simon. Like, he doesn't speak English, and my French is crap, but like we totally know each other. And like last year after Les Vacances, our wine guy at the Cave, like you could tell he wanted to hug me so bad. He was like, "Oh my God, you're back. Hi." Like, he was like so excited, and it's just so cute.
He genuinely missed you.
Genuinely was so pumped. And it's really cool. So I love community. But I also have realized that, Paris is such a food and wine city. And so like I've been trying so much stuff all over the city, which has been incredible. And by the way, I have like many recommendations to send you about new stuff and
oh my gosh,
whatever.
Please.
It's like all I do right now is like research food. So I'm crushing the lists at the moment. But I also think one of the things that I really have loved discovering about Paris is that as much as you're sort of like, okay, I'm going to travel for this chef in the 11th, most people in most neighborhoods are like, you won't even know that this is a cool bar during the day. It just looks like a bistro. And then at night, it's like every cool person in the neighborhood like goes to this particular spot to drink and hang out. It's completely nondescript. It's not a cocktail bar. I mean, sometimes, but a lot of it is just kind of like a dope corner spot. So yeah, what's like cool around your area? Do you have that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I completely agree. I feel like the sense of like just finding those little spots in your area is just like the most exciting thing. We usually go to the 9th, like when we want to go to like fun bars that we really like, just because it's a little bit more of an active kind of neighborhood. But there's a tiny little bar right down the street from us that's called Chez Camille. And it's just like, it just feels like a little pub almost. Like it's really not like, I wouldn't like travel across Paris just to go there, but it's just so nice to just have like a little glass of wine or a little beer at the end of the day, like a little apéro. So we like having a drink there. We also love going to Hôtel Amour. That's in the 9th. It's a hotel, but it's also like a bistro, and you can have really nice drinks there. And the patio is beautiful. They just have like, it's like a glass ceiling and they have all these plants that are kind of like coming down from the ceiling. It's just really beautiful. So we go there a lot. I just like for lunch or for a drink or for kind of like any time.
Doesn't that place like also have doesn't have a secret vinyl bar in the back too?
I think that's the other Hotel Amour. They have two, and I'm pretty sure I think you're talking about Hotel Grand Amour. That one is in the 10th. And it's also really nice, and I love going there. It's just a little bit farther away from where I live.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, that one has a vinyl section in the back, and it's really cool. But Hotel Amour it's from the same owners, and it's really fun.
If you're enjoying this episode of Music Around Paris, you may also be interested in our sister podcast, Don't Miss This, which is about interesting happenings going on in Paris every week. Mollie on a Trip, Music Around Paris will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Mollie on a Trip, Music Around Paris.
But the place I love to go to is a little bit farther away from where I live. It's in the 11th, and it's called Le Dauphin. I don't know if you've ever been, Le Dauphin. You would love it. It's like a natural wine place, and they have like amazing, amazing tapas, like just like finger food to share, but they always switch up the menu, like, and it's a lot of seafood, like ceviche. It's just like super fresh. And it's our ultimate favorite, like date spot or even like a night out with friends. Like for me, it's just like my favorite spot right now in Paris is Le Dauphin, and you have to try it. You're going to love it.
Sounds amazing. I'm so into it. This is awesome. I have been listening to Confetti like it's confetti. I like can't stop listening to that song. I like wake up in the morning.
I love that. I might steal that from you.
So what is the 2023 plan for music? Are there any live shows coming up? Like what's the plan?
Yes, definitely some live shows. We're releasing an album end of August. So that's going to be my second album coming out, at the end of the summer. But we're releasing lots of singles before then. So we have a new song coming up pretty quickly, and we're just going to keep it like super dynamic until we release the album. And then actual tour starts in September. We have a few festivals this summer, mostly in Canada. And so we're going to be touring in the UK, in France, in the States, in Canada. We have lots of dates as well, but we're going to be announcing tour dates soon. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's just always exciting to, work on new music and feel like the release date is actually coming up soon, because sometimes the process can take a minute. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So it's just exciting.
Do you go see music in Paris? Do you like to go see music? And where do you like to go play? And also, like, where have you liked to play? Like, what venues have you enjoyed playing at in Paris?
So I haven't played that. I mean, I've played, like a few times in Paris. My ultimate favorite show that I've played here was at the Trianon. That was last year. And it was so much fun. It's a really beautiful venue, and it's actually right next to my house. I'm lucky enough to live in Montmartre, where there's like La Cigale, there's the Trianon, there's another venue right next to there. And I actually saw Daniel Caesar last week, and I also saw a beautiful piano player from Montreal. Her name is Alexandra Streliski, and she was playing at La Cigale a few days ago. So I actually have been going to a few concerts in the last few weeks, and I love those venues. So my answer to both your questions are I loved myself playing at the Trianon. That was one of our favorite shows. Like the layout of the venue is just so fun to play in, because it's like it feels super intimate, but it also feels like the energy is going through. It's not like, it feels like you're really sharing like a musical moment with people there. So that I really love both seeing shows at the Trianon and playing there. But I've actually never seen a show at the Olympia. So I really want to go. I've never been to that, and hopefully play one as well.
Yes.
Eventually. But I've never been to the Olympia. I just know that it's like bucket list type venue,
Yeah.
What about you?
You know me, I kind of like, I have gone to like some really small venues, which has been fun, like Le Pop-Up du Label.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. There's one out in Belleville, Le Maranquerie or something.
Ah, la maroquinerie. Yeah. Yeah, my boyfriend played there before.
Oh, really? I think it's really fun that there's like that sort of like wine bar hang thing upstairs. And then it's really like in the venue downstairs. And that's super, it's just like you really are like in the show. I think that's really fun. I've been to Les Zeniths a couple times. That was fun.
Big.
Big. And then I went to a core to see Panic at the
Yeah.
Disco, which was so fun.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, it was a good time. And then Salé Pleyel.
Oh, I've never been there.
I saw Bastille there, and then I saw Death Cab for Cutie there.
Oh, cool. That must be a really fun show to see.
Yeah, it's a seated venue, but
I mean, I love a good seated venue once in a while.
me too.
Once in a while.
Okay. Well, a last question for listeners, because some of the people that listen to this podcast are travelers that are just super into France and into Paris. Do you have any like thoughts for people coming through Paris that maybe haven't been here before or are coming in and want to have a certain experience? Like, is there anything that you think would be important for them to know? Just any thoughts?
I mean, the one thing I wish someone had told me before I like experienced it myself, I guess is like whenever, I mean, everyone knows that Paris has a bad reputation for like, when you first meet servers at restaurants or like the first encounter that you can get with people, especially in like the service department, like whether it's like in a store or like at a restaurant. Paris has a very bad reputation. But the one thing I wish I knew is that like the rudeness that might come across is like not actual rudeness. Like it's just like kind of like a little bit colder than what you might get in America. But what I do love about Paris is that like once you've like established like an actual connection with someone, it's a real one. And so there's no like, hi, my love, like it's so good to see you, like if they don't mean it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that because it's like you don't need to reciprocate either. It can just be like, okay, can I please get this? Yeah, whatever. Like it's just kind of like very straightforward. And so if you think that someone doesn't like you, it doesn't mean that they don't like you. But if you think that they like you, it means they like you. And I like that about Paris. And I wish someone had told me that that was a thing.
I had a woman at our local charcuterie, and I went in and, this is something that I always try to tell non-French speakers is like, you don't assume that someone wouldn't walk up to you in America and start speaking in a different language and just assume that you understand German, right? So why would you just walk up to someone in France and just start speaking English? Like the best thing you can always start a conversation with is like, pardon, parlez-vous anglais? Like at least just ask. Like they probably do, but at least ask. So I was talking to my charcuterie lady and she's like, no. And I was like, okay, figured it out. I was trying to order a plate for like 13 people. It was like a whole thing. And we got through it. And so she's angrily slicing her meat, like looking real scary in French and mean and whatever. And then I see her, she like grabs this piece of like truffled something amazing and kind of like sneaks it around to me and gives me this look and this smile, just like, please try this because it's so good. And I was like, you're so sweet. You're actually this kind, wonderful woman who loves her truffle meat, and I love your truffle meat, and here we are. But I didn't like in American standards, especially from Minnesota, where everyone's like dying nice with niceness. It was really interesting for me to be like, oh, I was reading those social cues wrong. Or I was just overreading them and actually, through returning there and being kind to her, like we didn't have to speak the same language. We're cool,
Absolutely. That's such a cute story and such a perfect representation of what I meant by that, because it's like, yeah, it's just like something that we might read into as like a little bit rude or cold is actually just like not overdoing it, which I kind of like. And it's gotten me to think about my own way of socializing sometimes. And it's okay to just like cut the.
I couldn't agree more. I actually have a little bit of a hard time going when I go back to LA right now and Minnesota actually, because I'm almost like off put by it. I'm like, do you know that this is like transparently weird that you're being like overly like, but not real?
Yeah.
This is honestly just weird. I would rather have a real conversation with the real you. And it's actually sad too, in a sense, because you're like, are you in touch with your self, or do you just feel like you have to wear this mask? So wild. Anyway,
Yeah.
philosophy of humans.
How is Sam doing? I feel like he probably adapted in like 1 second to the, the Parisian lifestyle.
Yeah.
He's like the most Parisian American I've ever met.
He's great. He's doing great. He loves it. Let's find a time to hang soon. I'll send you a message.
Oh my gosh,
and
please.
I really appreciate you coming to talk to me about museums. And I'm excited to check out these restaurants that you told me about, these hangs.
Keep in touch for sure. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Also, where should people find you?
Anywhere on Spotify or social media or Apple Music. My music's on all the streaming platforms, YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music. And it's just my name. It's Charlotte Cardin or Charlotte Cardin, however you want to pronounce it. It's the same person.
Okay, cool. And thank you so much for your time. And I'm glad you're feeling better.
Have a good one, Mollie.
Thanks for being here today. Hope you enjoyed the chat on Mollie on a Trip, Music Around Paris. Please check out the other great podcasts on the Paris Underground Radio Network. If you have a second, also, please rate us on Apple Podcasts. It does actually help. And if you want to find me, I'm at MollieOnATrip on Instagram, and I'd love to chat about music and food and wine and everything Paris. And I'm also super happy to hear suggestions for future guests. Thanks.
Mollie on a Trip, Music Around Paris was produced by Jennifer Garrity for the Paris Underground Radio Podcast Network.